Chapter 24, Love of Knowledge. To quote Bruce Lee, "A wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer." End quote. I was at a party. We were talking about the internet. A guy at the party was discussing how he thought the internet brought a lot of bad things with it. There was disinformation. You had less privacy than before. Worst of all, you could use the internet to find anything you wanted to find to support your own viewpoint. So if you had an idea you wanted to reinforce, no matter how crazy it was, there was going to be a website dedicated to corroborating that idea. For example, there is a website dedicated to the idea that the world is flat. The organization that runs it is called the Flat Earth Society. Go look them up. You may think I'm deliberately lying, so I want you to go look it up. His point was that the internet was one giant confusing pile of data. What are we supposed to do with that? Anyone can gain knowledge. You go to school, the teacher says things, it may apply to the real world, it may not. A love of knowledge compels us to go further. We don't wait for the knowledge to come to us. We go out looking for it. This love transcends bias. When you have a love of knowledge, you aren't trying to convince yourself of any one thing. There is no attachment. If you find a great idea, try it out for yourself and see if it works. Don't just accept something at face value because it is comfortable. Remember how we are wired to take the path of least resistance? Love of knowledge can help us break those comfort zones. This approach towards knowledge expands our view of the world. It expands our consciousness. We change, we grow. Honesty with yourself is all part of this too. When you come across new information, will you filter some of it out, or will you use discernment to reconcile inconsistencies with your worldview? Discernment is hard. It means that you might have to change. So yes, the internet is definitely full of disinformation. However, you are capable of discernment. Don't worry, it's okay to be wrong. I'm wrong constantly, unless I happen to know everything within a given system. Then I'm only wrong a little less. I was a therapeutic foster parent for about 5 months. It was the most physically exhausting thing I had ever done. I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years, and this was still harder. I lived on this compound ran by a nonprofit organization. I was responsible for 5 to 6 kids at a time. My girlfriend at the time co-parented with me, which helped. We had an assistant that was around for about 40 hours a week. It felt like all I did was cook food and clean. It was like I was stuck in this eternal cycle of cooking and cleaning up the mess I made from cooking. My alone time was non-existent. As an introvert, this annihilated my energy levels. One day, I was reading an opinion from someone for whom I had great respect. They were right about many things in the past. They were to be trusted. They were smart. They were writing about global warming. They said that global warming wouldn't increase the sea level because all of the ice is already floating in the water. In the same way that melting ice cubes won't increase the water level in a cup of water, it would stand to reason that the same case would apply to the planet Earth. After I read the opinion piece in its entirety, I felt a great sense of indignity for those who believe that global warming would increase sea levels. How stupid they must be. I got on Facebook. I made a paragraph-long post about how silly everyone is who thinks this way. 10 minutes later, I felt horrible. It didn't take long for a few people to post a response. They mentioned how much of the ice that would melt is actually on top of land. It isn't in the water, so the ice in the cup metaphor is irrelevant. The ice on the land would have a direct impact on sea levels. They were right. I didn't take the time to investigate. I didn't take the time to learn. I took something at face value because it was comfortable, and then I made a judgment of others. I was a poor judge. Now I was embarrassed. I felt awful. Here comes the cortisol. Afterwards, I realized what I had done. My psychic energy was so low, I didn't make a choice. I took the path of least resistance. What I did wasn't art. It was a reaction. I wasn't doing much to cause a shift in the consciousness of others. Just the opposite was happening. Others were informing me of how my worldview was flawed. The path to knowledge is difficult. You could have a well-respected expert offer insights, wisdom, and knowledge all the livelong day. They could be right every single time you have verified and checked their work. But past performance is no guarantee of future results. If you fall into the habit of taking what that person says at face value, then we stop seeking out the knowledge for ourselves. We outsource the task to someone else. Our love of knowledge is replaced with complacency. The scientific method helps. We are all scientists. If you ever tested an idea, you used science. There was this one time I walked into a room and flipped a light switch. The light didn't turn on. I flipped the switch again. Nothing happened. Why did I flip the switch? I wanted to test the switch. I come up with the idea that the bulb for the light should be replaced. I didn't just believe it. I tested it. I replaced the bulb. The light turned on. That's science. It wasn't rigorous. In that case, it didn't need to be. If replacing a bulb didn't work, then I would think that there is something wrong with the fixture. I'm glad there was nothing wrong with the fixture. I don't know how to fix that. Loving knowledge is also great because it makes our lives great. No more Eskimo sacrifices. No more freezing in a castle when you are super rich. Knowledge is going to save us. We all have biases. I try not to be biased, but I know I still am. Biases are hard to overcome because so many of them are unconscious. It's a whole lot easier to deal with a bias you are aware of. Nick Morgan wrote a book called Power Cues. The book talks about how you can use body language and control your behavior to influence the outcome of your social interactions. It turns out that the vast majority of our conversations with others are conducted on the medium of nonverbal communication. Morgan says that this communication is mostly unconscious. More importantly, our delivery through our nonverbal communication has a much larger impact over the outcome of a meeting than the actual content of the message does. In fact, Morgan conducted research that shows who a leader will be in a meeting simply based off of the pitch and tone of their voice. Even if the potential leader doesn't have anything necessarily useful to say, people are more likely to nominate this leader who speaks with a deeper voice in relation to their regular talking voice. People don't know they are doing this for the reasons that they are doing it, but they still do it. It's all unconscious. Neil Postman's The Medium is the Message considers a similar point. In Postman's book, he analyzes how television destroyed meaningful discussion because of the very nature in which the discussion would be portrayed. All of those biases that we have about how someone looks starts to kick in. Hey, is that guy taller than that other guy? The taller guy is obviously right. We know that height doesn't strengthen or weaken the content of the speaker, but it influences the way we perceive their content. The trick to getting over some of these basic biases is to become aware that they exist. In other words, learn as much as you can, and then never stop learning. I know I said it already, but it's okay to be wrong. In fact, it's more than okay. It's progress. It's cliche, but Thomas Edison's quote, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work," is true. Every time you get something wrong and you tell others about it, they get to hone their sense of where to go next. They get to be better, and it's because you figured out you were wrong. As far as the endeavor for knowledge is concerned, I think that figuring out something is wrong is just as important as figuring out something is right. We should give medals to scientists who are wrong their whole lives. I think people are scared to be wrong. I used to be scared. Now I just embrace it. I know without a shadow of a doubt that I will get plenty of things wrong for the rest of my life. I'm fine with that. I have a love for knowledge. I'm ready to change when I know better. Intelligence really isn't all about how much you can process or how much knowledge you've gained. It's about your attitude towards knowledge. It's how you approach the pursuit of knowledge. I've heard plenty of professional sports coaches say that they would rather have an average player who is willing to give their best effort than the best player in the world who wasn't willing to put forth their best effort. The coach knows. Results come from attitude. If you love knowledge, you will get results. You will grow. You have a need to grow. Now you have a better idea of how to fulfill that need.